All right, the first thing that I wanted to do tonight was have just a general comment. I noticed that a whole lot of people haven't done their gestures, a whole bunch of them. So some people just uploaded it right now. If you haven't, put them in there now. But my agenda for today is to just do a quick introduction here. Talk about a couple of things, flipbook thing that you probably just saw. Reintroduce the idea of what is expected with these gestures. And then I'm going to give you a block of time to actually do the gestures. So maybe 20 minutes or something like that. And then after that, I'll ask you, and we'll come back to here and see how many people have got their gestures uploaded. This is actually a pretty important step in the whole pipeline, the whole process of animation. You really can't do anything unless you have characters, or at least the build or the gesture of one. So we'll go over that again, and I'll give you time to do it like right now, tonight. And then we'll do critique. And then we'll talk about how to use the gestures that you've got. All right, so having said that, I wanted to, it's recording right now. Hold on one second. All right, this is recording right now. So the one thing that I wanted to show you was Paul, the leader of our department, was talking about this website. It's called flipbooku.com, except it's FILBOKU.com. I'll put this in the chat. Great. Now I don't know where my chat went. Now I don't know where my window went. Hold on a second, everybody. This happened earlier too. All right, so in the chat, excuse me, is this website for flipbooks. But I think that they're a really good place to start. I think that when I do this class on ground, excuse me, I ask you all to go buy a set of 3x5 index cards and a binder clip and just take a stab at it. You know, anything. I think that what I usually start out with is the idea that that you wound up in some form of art is that you were constantly turning your chemistry book and your biology book into a flip book. I know that I did that when I was in high school, grade school. I had the little guy walking and a little tank came across and rolled him over. You know, I don't know, one of my buddies showed me how to do it. And it's that you just turn your whole chemistry book into a flip book, you know, because chemistry, why? And so this company offers a bunch of them that are blank. And they offered this one, which is the 12 principles of animation. Remember that there are more than 12 principles of animation. So this is just the 12 that Frank and Ollie wrote when they were still at Disney. But this is good. Apparently, there's 2 different books, and each book has like a different way of flipping it by the way you hold it. We can't see it. I can't buy it because it's sold out. So apparently Paul must have got in on the Kickstarter part of it, and his came just shortly today or this past week, and he's enjoying that. So I just wanted to share that with you. All right, and then the next thing that I wanted to share with you was that I did add a couple of things to the storyboard board. And I kind of went crazy because there's a pop-up book author. His name is Duncan Birmingham, and I think he's from the UK, who wrote a book on how to make pop-up books. And I was very fascinated by it because it's just really awesome putting these things together. And the other day, I just clicked on maybe 10 of the pages right in a row. And what that allowed me to do was completely rebuild my Pinterest thing. So even if I click on anything, it's going to show me storyboard or pop-up book stuff. So I posted a bunch of stuff here that I thought was really interesting. I think that when you're thinking of gestures and you're thinking of character design and proportion, this little Coraline example here is excellent. And there's a whole bunch of them that are really good. If you wanted to take the idea of your basic build of the character, then these Jesper posts right here are really good. This whole thing right here is all about gestures and building from shapes. That whole top part right there. Just really, really good stuff. Remember, we're going to end up doing a walk cycle here in just a week or so. And so this is a really good Jesper walk cycle. Run, catch, jump. So, but all this stuff up here is new. All this stuff about character design is new. And remember that I'm asking for your character to be bipedal. So if we click on this little Coraline one, you're going to see you get a whole bunch of silhouettes that are just really awesome. And they're not necessarily just Neil Gaiman's Coraline, but they're just all over the place. So when you're thinking about your head size to body shape and how your character's built, how do you draw your character? These little silhouettes here are just, they're priceless. How do you build your character? Do you want your character to be really, really intense, impossible to animate in 2D because there's so many parts? How long are their legs? How big is their head compared to the body? That kind of thing. So, and again, that's just by clicking on this one Coraline one here. So remember that this is a really great resource. You know, going all the way from a Google search to a Pinterest board, which I gave you, it's in the discussion area, all the way to the art station. There's a whole bunch of stuff that is just available right at your fingertips. So I just wanted to put that out there for you because, you know, I gave you the idea last week of how to build your characters, how to draw your characters just really simply. I think I was using the rough animator. So once again, I think that letting it open, I know you can't see it, it's possible I moved it. It's possible I moved it or threw it away. Oh yeah, it might have got thrown away. So hold on a second here, everybody. I was throwing a bunch of files away. I think I might have accidentally thrown it away. Try one more time. Yeah, it's not showing up. Okay, so really quickly, just to reiterate what I was doing last week, was talking about the idea of how to build a character, and you need something to work with. You can design and build your character however you would like, but you need to train your hands on how you're building your character. So just with a blue pencil, you draw a head at strike number 1. And remember that from that first strike of the oval shape of the head, you've literally should think about how tall your character is. And last week we talked about 6 or 6.5 or 7, 7.5, even 8 heads tall would be a normal human. And so you strike the line of action, either as a compound curve or a simple curve, and then you give your character its torso. And we like using these little bean shapes, and then give a line of action for each one of the legs, and then stop, study it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this character is somewhere around 6 heads tall. Give your character the contrapposto with the shoulders and the hips are always cantilevered. Give ourselves a little deltoid, upper arm, lower arm, usually the hands. The fingertips come about midway through the thighs, in towards the body, out, away. How do you want your character to be built? So I wanted you to study this for about 10 drawings. And once you were set with that, then I wanted you to go in and give me 10 gestures. Just strike them really quickly. And, okay, so this character is leaning. And so last week I said to all of you that I was looking for verbs here. So 10 different studies about how you want your character to be built. How big do you want your body? How big do you want your head? You pick. And then 10 different gestures. All right. Everyone okay with this idea? And remember that the gestures are all based on verbs. All right, so having said that, what I'd like to do right now is give you all 20 minutes to do this. So I'm going to stop the recording.
Billy, I think you're muted right now.
Sorry, everybody. I was sneezing, so I muted myself. All right, can everybody okay? All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to critique the stuff that's already in there. I'll go all the way to the bottom, and then I'll refresh the screen again, and we'll catch up with anybody who's posting while we're doing this critique. All right. Again, sorry for my allergy. Right now, the wind is hardly blowing, so I don't know why. All right, so we've got Yolanda.
Yeah, I think I need to add more though.
Okay, let's just see what you got.
Okay.
Okay, so this is great. You decided on 4 heads tall. That's good. You got a close up on the face. That's good. Excellent. You've got a multiple page PDF, which is even better. Careful of that space in the file name.
Oh yeah,
That
sorry.
could cause trouble go down the line. So
Yeah.
so just rename it so that it's V2,
Mm-hmm.
YB_G_V2. Yeah, so this is what I want. Standing, neutral, happy, sitting, okay. So remember that with a pose like this, that you can certainly have the head sitting here, but if there's a lot of forward weight, that means your line of action is going to be more like this, which would take his body shape and push his body shape like this. Can you see that little difference right there?
Oh yeah.
That's a big
Yeah.
difference right there. Is just how the line of action really helps you. Sure, he's an
Mhm.
old guy, so he's hunched over and his legs are, so all these are okay. But if he's sitting with his cane, the line of action to be like this, and then see how much exaggeration you can get out of it. How slouchy is he? Even at the point where it's like, his legs are splayed because his hips are so tired. And it doesn't always have to be in the side view, right? So you get something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, just hold on a second. Clear. And these are great. Yes. Yeah, keeping them small is fine. You did these in Photoshop?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Yeah, it looks good. Remember to try to include the line of action in your gestures as you're drawing them.
Oh yeah.
Keep it light. Keep it in a lighter color even.
Mhm.
But yeah, but those are great. Thank you, Yolanda.
Thank you.
All right, Carmen. Okay. So you grew your character up and now you're studying. Perfect. Okay. Line of action could really help this pose. Carmen? I
Got
like the
it.
drawing. It's got a lot of integrity to it. But really more than all these drawings on this page, this one has more of a gestural quality to it. It's
Mhm.
just a little more loose. It's a little more gestural. Did you draw this one after this pose?
Yeah.
So I think you limited yourself because I can feel that you didn't want to run into her hand and you didn't
Yeah.
finish the feet, but this one actually has some really good lines in it. But remember, all these poses really, truly need a line of action.
Mhm.
All right, these are great. These are great. And the line of action in these poses really helps a lot. So yes, excellent. Good job, Carmen. Yay!
Yay, thank
Carmen,
you.
Yolanda. All right, is everyone getting the idea here? I think that as everyone's looking at this, these went beyond what I was looking for. She's got facial structure and acting in there, and that's even better. Wonderful. Thank you, Carmen. Deborah.
Hi, I put my drawings again.
Remember your file name, ds_g. Deborah,
Mhm.
you don't need all these letters in here for your file name.
Okay, I just upload a new file with
What did you
more
do?
drawings.
Wait,
I
say
just yeah, I just upload more new file. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. This the one?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Good. Okay. Yes. Yes. Good. Okay. Yep, you got the idea. Good job. Thank you, Deborah. Yay!
Thank you.
Oh, that was weird. Oh, okay. Where am I here? James,
Oh boy.
how are you?
Okay. The last three were just so good. It's like, oh yeah, I drew
Oh,
some
but
good.
this is what I wanted. I think I asked you to all study heads tall, right? So it's pretty close. Gestures are getting there. I think you missed the other part of the assignment where I wanted
Yeah, the head's tall thing. I just,
the studying of the proportions.
yeah,
But this is getting there. It's what I wanted. You only did about half of what I wanted though.
okay.
I still gave you a check mark, but you're in trouble.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, shade. All right, studying, probably a little small. Shade, are you drawing in Photoshop?
I was, yes.
What did you set your canvas size at?
I'm not sure. I did those full size and then shrunk them down.
Oh, I see. So I think this is okay to study in here. And these are pretty good gestures. I think that what you're trying to do though is find the final line of the exterior contour of the character as you're drawing it. And that can usually stifle you. It can usually stop you from teaching your hand how to relax a little bit more, how to find that rhythm. So I think that these are okay, but I think that they could have a little bit more power, a little bit more weight to them if you would have gone in there. I'm waiting for Zoom to wake up here. Hold on. Come on, Zoom. Here we go. So for instance, on this pose right here, you draw your head, right? But your line of action really could be a complete arc. And then on top of that, then you draw the character's torso. And then you really get what their legs are doing and what their arm is doing. You know, I think that this one is close. This one's kind of hard because it's kind of in a standing neutral pose. So head, line of action. Try to get as much rhythm in there as possible. This one, it's not quite right. So your head is here. The way you've drawn this one, your line of action should actually be like this. It should actually flow right through this foot. And then really there should be a line of action for each leg. This arm is foreshortened, this arm is foreshortened.
Yeah, I guess I just didn't understand what line of action was.
I think it's a good place to study it here now today, these days, just because as we're doing our walk cycle or run cycle, it'll make a big difference. As you're doing your final, it'll make a big difference. So this character is hanging off the wall. So head, line of action. It has got to be curved, right? You got the head, the left arm and the shoulder, the right arm, the legs are okay, but really the line of action should be like this for that guy. And this guy jumping, you got the line of action, but I think that the way you've drawn it, it's really more of an arc. And that remember that in all of these studies, there should be a line of, well, you got one line of action, you stopped. It looked like you started out okay, but then you stopped. Every drawing you ever draw should have a line of action in it.
Yeah, I guess I've just never done them before, so I forgot.
You're getting
I'm
the
sorry.
idea, but keep going.
Okay.
And Magnus?
Mine are super rough.
Well, I think that they're getting there. Once again, your line of action is you're not directing yourself with the line of action. And you really want to say, okay, here's my head tall. And you started out okay. I always like drawing that line of action through the top of the head. And remember that it really just drives the head and the body. And so you got that little shape in there, which is okay. But I think your right shoulder is probably a little bit too far out. But then remember that each one of these legs has their own line of action too. And you missed that. a character it shouldn't really, when you're designing a character, you really shouldn't have the hands in the pockets. Just draw the arms away from the body so that we can see them. And you're studying here, this guy's leaning backwards a little bit too much. And it's good that we're looking at it now, because that's the line of action. He's standing neutral, so get that compound curve to be neutral. If you want a big torso, then give him a big shape. Then add his deltoids, contrapposto, find the hips, get the line of action for one foot, the line of action for the other. Get this arm up here. Always remember the silhouette is a good thing to work with. Maybe this arm is coming in the other way. Maybe the legs are splayed a little bit more too, because he's this big guy. All right.
I see.
Well, that's why we're doing it now, right?
Yeah.
We're studying it. All right, and so you got these are a good way to study, right? How far can I push it? Is it balanced? And remember, the arms and legs have their own lines of action. This guy's looking pretty stiff. So especially for you, Magnus, now get in there and really give each arm and each leg its own line of action. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Oh, there's more. So like a pose like this is a good pose, this kneeling pose. So let's just talk about this one for everybody's benefit. So you've got like a moon shape for the head. You've got this jelly bean shape for the head. And remember that the best thing that you can do is always think of it as a 3D shape, so that when your line of action starts, it skewers that shape right down the middle. Remember last week, I made a big mention of giving your character a neck and thinking about whether it's going to point backwards or forward. So, in this case here, you've got your neck is dissolved. There's no neck at all. So if that's the case, you want a big trapezius, then the body shape of this character should be like this. And then the deltoid should be out here. And then your hips are here. So line of action right into the ground and up for the foot, line of action straight and back down. And then find a good silhouette. I think that here, just kind of look at your comic books. This is going to be a good place for the character to either put their hands on their hips or to carry a spear. And if they have their hand on their thigh, then just put their hand on their thigh here. But you can kind of see that just with the way I've helped you with this part of the line of action, which is quite a bit different than the way you have here, it helps redirect this pose. It brings the pose more solidly into the gesture.
For
Right,
sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay, no, you're welcome. All right. All right, so that was the end of, no, I got Kyle.
Yes, hello.
Kyle, you just uploaded this a minute ago. Okay, so these
Yes,
are
I do.
okay. These are okay. I think it's okay to work in block form. There's technically nothing wrong with that. But remember, like in pose number 6, he's got weight on both feet.
Yeah.
So that means the line of action should come right straight through the middle. Right
Oh,
through,
okay.
right through his butt. And have his hips, and then each leg has its own line of action.
All right.
So, and in 5, you did the same thing. You've got like the line of action is not going through his head like it should. And it's really just kind of pushing one foot. So get the line of action so that it's balanced and that each leg. So this one's correct. Like pose number 10 is okay.
Okay.
8 is okay. 9 is okay. But like if like a character spot got both weight on a weight on both feet, then the line of action has to go straight down between them. And then each leg has its own. So this is good. And a check mark for Kyle.
All right. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. All right, and Delilah.
Yes, hello.
Okay, so I think your drawings are okay. The poses are a little stiff because you're learning this. You're terrified, right?
Yes.
You're like, oh my God, I got to get this right or Billy's going to yell at me. And remember, I like to do things wrong. I like to do things wrong in many different ways as possible. So if this guy is here and he's got a line of action, he's looking a little off balance. See what I did there?
Yep.
So he's a little, and this one, I think that you intentionally made her off balance. You know, and I think that okay, but I think that the idea of correcting this pose would be is that the line of action for this leg is okay, but then this leg should be out here to really balance the pose. So just think of balance.
Okay.
And not the balance on your checking account, balance and weight. So this character, the line of action is wrong on the top. It should be this way. It goes away from the way they're looking. And then you've got the upper part is okay. And I think the same thing goes here, that you have this line of action is okay, but then this line of action could be really out here to really balance the pose. And then as you're doing that, deltoids, I think your arms are a little short. So get the arms to be a little longer in and out. I think that improves this pose altogether. You want to take a screenshot of that?
Yep.
So yeah, I think her arms are a little short, but just think about the line of action as it's balancing the pose. This guy's in the front view, he's okay.
Okay.
And Tristan. Okay, lines of action are missing, Tristan.
Yeah, I realize that.
I mean, how many times do I have to say the word line of action? You know, these proportion studies are getting there. They're getting there. But yeah, but you need line of action. Line of action. You know, I think it's all there, but I think that the thing that drives the pose, that carries the weight, is the line of action. Right? So go back to that flooby newbie. Right? We talked about that. I've shown it to you. I think it's even in the discussion area of the class. Some poses are good, but I think that they could be improved with the line of action. Definitely. All right, thank you, Tristan. All right, refresh. And go back to the top. And nobody just uploaded anything right now? Okay. Let me do this. How many are in progress and will be posting something soon? Anybody? Anybody? I'm looking. Okay, so let's move on here. The next thing that we need to talk about is story. So what I want to do is I want to bring the story to the first discussion about whenever you're talking story, You always have to talk about Joseph Campbell. And the hero's journey. And 12 steps of the hero's journey. All right, so this is a website that has it. There's a whole bunch of stuff related. This is taught in cinema schools across the world. American mythology is where it's at. Let's switch this to images though, because I want to get that one little graphic that talks about the hero's journey. And I think this one will be fine. And so when you're evaluating any kind of story, you always have the beginning. You have the first part of the story is Act 1. It's the ordinary world. And then the character has a call to adventure. Something has to change. So this is a big thing when I speak to animation students and a room full of animation students that has game students in it as well. This call to adventure is an enormous part of a story. The ordinary world, nothing is happening here. It's just exposition. It's just telling you who the character is, what their thoughts and their beliefs are, but something has to happen. Now, when you're playing a game, the character just appears on the level when you start playing. So I think that when you're talking about games, there is no call to adventure. The character's already there. This call to adventure is already there. So I think this is a misnomer that games tell stories, because I don't think that they can, because they don't end. A lot of games don't end. There's a few games that end, but I'm sorry, Angry Birds, there's no story. A lot of games, there's no story. There's a little bit of narrative, and there's a little bit of character, but very, very few games have true story in them. After something happens, the character says, oh, I don't want to do that. And then they meet their mentor. Something convinces Luke Skywalker to become a Jedi. You know, the Star Wars is the perfect following of the hero's journey. They cross the threshold. He leaves his homeland. Second act, there are tests, and he finds who is on his side and who is not on his side. Han Solo is a goofball, but he is a good guy, right? Then they approach the Death Star. They approach Darth Vader. And then there's the big fight. And then the outcome of that. The third act is the road back home, atonement, and the return of the elixir, or the return of the goblet of fire, whatever it is. It can be any actual thing, it could be an idea, it can be the head of the dragon. So this is the true hero's journey. There are 12 steps in the hero's journey. For us, our story is going to be much simpler. Our story is just going to be beginning, middle, and end. Let's see what happens if we, hey. I think I might have hit the back button. Let's see what happens if we just do this as an image, image search. I don't normally do this, but for us, I think that this tells a short story. Oh, this reminds me, I think I was talking about this either last week and the week before in my notes. I was talking about, oops, sorry, I don't want to go there. Oh, it's not on my up playlist here. Let me just search it. All right, so I think it was might have even been last week that I might have said something about Robin, and I went and just looked at Netflix and it came to the top because everything was cross-referencing. It is out. Aardman's 35-minute film of Robin Robin is on Netflix right now. So if you have Netflix, put it on your list of things to do for tonight. It's a wonderful film. Absolutely, just really, really great. There's little sections in there where you can see that the storyboard artists were thinking about Henry Selick and The Nightmare Before Christmas. There's some really dark elements right in here. It's wonderful. The characters are really sweet. You will really like it. So Robin Robin is out there. All right, so the thing that I wanted to do then was talk about your approach to your story here. And so the first thing that you want to do is think about your story in as simple terms as possible. And last week we talked about the idea of verbs. When you're an animator, you animate the verbs. That's what you're doing. You animate the verbs. When you are studying keyframes, you are animating the verbs. So what does your story look like? It can be as simple as run, jump, catch. Let's expand on this just a little bit, right? Neutral. Thinking. Reacting. Anticipation. Run, jump, catch, and then end, resolve. This is your script. This right here is your script. This is your story. That's for us. Neutral, thinking, reaction, anticipation, run, jump, catch. You can expand us even a little. Neutral, thinking, reacting, anticipation, run. I'll just do this as like a POV because they're going to need to jump. They're going to notice that there's like something that they need to jump over. So we inserted this between the run and the jump, we inserted this little reaction here, this notice or a reaction. All right, and then run, jump. Maybe they catch in the air, they land, and end. All right, so what I want to do right now is remind everybody that you can do any of this out of order. You can start with the catching and landing and then have him running, whatever, however you want to do it. You do not have to do it this way. This is just an example. This is just an example. All right, with this example though, I think that what we can do is we can start building out what we think our character is going to do. So in this neutral, what are they doing? You know, are they standing? Is there a head turn? And then the reaction, right? And then with this reaction, this anticipation here, it's going to have a little squash, a little stretch in it before it goes into the run. So we'll bring the run down. So, and then this is fine. And then the jump, we'll bring that down. He's going to, in this case, I'm going to change it around a little bit and I'm going to flip these. So he's going to run, jump, land, then catch. And then instead of ending, he's going to cheer. All right, so does this look okay to everybody? right? This understanding. So these are key words. Now, what I do is, if I'm expanding on this, if I'm thinking about this, I want to know this. I want to know how long is my final shot going to be? And I would say that this is a target would be 10 seconds just to start. And so at 10 seconds, that's 240 frames, right? But in order to get there, we have to get this script. We have to do our characters, which we are starting on right now, right? Then we have to do thumbnails. Then we have to do boards. And the process then is keys.
Are we supposed to have a uniquely designed character? I was under the impression we could just do a blank slate character.
It can be as simple as you would like. It can really truly just be as simple as you would like. It can be, I think that if the character is going to react, if they're going to notice something, that you're probably going to need a face. Remember last week we talked about bipedal, right?
I wasn't here last week.
But I think that it can be really simple. Your character does not have to be and it should not be complicated. The more complicated you make your character, the more difficult it would be to animate. You know, there's some really cool characters out there that have 4 legs and 2 arms and wings, and they're carrying 2 or 3 guns and blasters, and they have a whole bunch of stuff on them that are assets. You know, they're really cool, but it'd be impossible to animate for us here in 2D. Does that answer your question, Shade?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I was doing the assignment correctly.
Yeah, I think everyone did. Yeah, I think everyone was doing it correctly. Yeah. All right. So, but do I have any questions about this right here? Animator animates the verbs. So when you're doing yours, think about this. Remember, yours does not have to be like this, and it shouldn't be like this. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start thinking about the thumbs, and we'll go back and forth here. We'll just toggle back and forth. We'll say, okay, when you're doing thumbnails, which is due for next week, right? So I'm not going to have you do boards. We're doing thumbnails for next week. Let's talk about how you do thumbnails. So look at your neutral pose. What does your neutral pose want to be? Now we're going to kind of go back to that 4x7 thing here. And so this right here is about a 16:9 ratio. And if I bring up my calculator, we're going to take a look at 16 divided by 9 equals 1.7777. So this equals 1.77 ratio. But we don't have to draw 16 inches by 9 inches. That would be really dumb. If we have 8 inches by 4.5 inches, that's the same thing. It's 1.77777. That's our aspect ratio. So let's just check it to make sure that that's correct. So we have 8 divided by 4.5. It's the same exact ratio. All right, so then let's keep going because this is still too big. This is even big for a final board size. If we go 4 inches by 2.25, that should be 1.777 as well. So 4 divided by 4.25. 4 divided by 2.25, sorry. Same exact ratio. Everyone okay with this? So when you're looking at your iPhones or your computer or your TV screen, its aspect ratio is usually 16:9. Very few modern TV sets right now are sold outside of this ratio. You can very rarely find a TV that has 1.85. and TVs used to be 4:3. And 4:3 is 1.333. That was the aspect ratio in film and cinema for a long time. Like for 70 years, this ratio, and that ratio kind of looks like this. It's a lot more square. Animation paper was 4:3 ratio, which is 1.333. But we're working with 16:9. All right, and then so when you're doing these thumbnails, remember that if you're using like graph paper, that 7 squares by 4 squares is really close to this ratio. So 7 divided by 4 equals 1.75. That's really close. That's good. So, and in graph paper, each one of these squares equals 1/4 of an inch. And so this is really small. This 7:4 in graph paper, it's actually a very small thumbnail. This is good for thumbnail. So if you have any questions, your graph paper looks like, well, you can't see it. Let me do an image search for you. So graph paper, you've seen it. You don't need to buy any, but these little squares are generally 1/4 of an inch. Some of them are more engineering and they're 1/10 of an inch, but the idea is that if this is 7:4, then like squares, then your actual thumbnail is, let me measure it here. Oops, I'm drawing on my paper here. So this calculation here is 1.75, 1 3/4 inches by 1 inch. And you can see when you divide that gives you the 1.75. 1.75 divided by 1 is 1.75. All right, do I have any questions about this? Because your next thing to do, because these are thumbnails. So if you've got squares that are 1.75 inches, 1 3/4 inches by 1, that's this. So this is 1 3/4 inches by 1, and this is 1.75, which is close enough. So that's good for thumbs. If you were going to do big thumbs, then double it. So this is going to be I want to get this right. Right, 3.5 by 2. So these are just big thumbs. And actually, they're big enough that they could be first boards. Almost. They're almost first boards. All right, so let's do the calculation on that one. And remember, animation does have some math in it, so oops. So let's just double check. 3.5 divided by 2 equals 1.75. So that's the ratio we're looking at. All right, and at this point, I want to pause and just ask everybody, does everyone understand what I'm doing here?
Yes.
Have any questions? Okay. All right, so that's our target. we're looking at this as being our first thumb, which is 1 3/4 inches by 1. It's a good thumbnail size. And then big thumbs are around 3.5 by 2. All right, so having said that, let's go to our next drawing. Because we want to go back and think about neutral. So when we're drawing a neutral pose, you know, what you have to think to yourself, hey, in this neutral pose right here, oh, we picked standing. So go over to here, and now you're going to do your thumbnails just randomly. You are studying what all of these verbs are going to look like. So you can do them out of order if you'd like. That is perfectly acceptable. You can add to them, you can edit. So random is a good thing here. So how do you want your character to be standing? What are they doing right here? You know, you're introducing your character to the audience. What are they doing? They're standing, you know, they're just kind of hanging out. You know, what are they doing? You might even think, hey, you know what? Maybe I would like to change this neutral to walking. Right? So this is a big change. And it might even affect the idea of thinking and reacting and anticipating. But that's okay. So here we're studying this as just a simple pose, remembering that you were going to design a character that was 5 or 6 heads tall. And if you wanted this entire character here to be in frame, that you're going to have a aspect ratio of about this big. And so what I'm asking you all to do is start thinking about everything all at once, especially these beginning poses. And what are you going to do about this ratio? So in other words, if I had this as a little thumbnail here, I'm going to say, oh, I want my character to be completely in the shot here, and they're going to be walking. I'm like, okay, so that's what we do. We're going to have our character just random. So this is walking. You're going to put walking in there. I go back here. Then there'll be, you know, so maybe we're going to change this idea of thinking. So we'll put a question mark here, but maybe reacting or walking and stop. So without the film ratio here, let's just, well, we did, so this is the stop pose right here. So let's pull this out. So that's our stop pose. And so if they're going to walk, you want the same ratio of the character. And we're going to be in the side view here. So you just get your character working and you start with a contact position. It's kind of a neutral pose. This is his left leg. So that means his left arm would be behind him. And his right arm would be in front. You know, so this is a good setup right here for walking. This is a good setup for stopping. So we're just gonna like study what that ratio is. So now this guy's kind of in the wrong place because if we're just gonna walk, this walk is gonna be in place. We're gonna do our walk cycle in place. And remember, what we're doing is we're studying what these poses look like in our aspect ratio. So let's just jump over to the electric internet here for a second. And let's change this to storyboard template. You don't have to do this. You don't have to download it. I don't want you drawing inside this. And I'll explain that why later. But I just want you looking at what this storyboard looks like. Right, you see that there's different ones. Like this one's like more square than the Academy because this looks like the Academy ratio. This one looks really square. These look like they're 16 by 9, these first two. This one right here looks like it's 16 by 9, but this one doesn't look like it's 16 by 9. And this is square, this is wrong. So we're just kind of looking, this one looks like it's correct. This one looks like it's correct. There's a whole bunch that look like they're correct, but we're just doing thumbnails. And in my storyboard class, I'm very passionate about making sure that you don't ever do this, that you don't ever click on one of these storyboard templates for thumbnails, because it affects the way you draw if you do this, and it affects the way you pose out your character. All right, so that was just, we're thinking ahead, now let's think backwards just a little bit. Let's go backwards here and think about run. All right, so we've got this working, we're gonna need another drawing. And let's just talk about a run. So what does it look like? We're gonna be in the side view here. Our character was walking to our left. So let's just keep him running to the left. So I'm kind of breaking up the line of action there a little bit. So let me Z back and just make that really clear. And let's look at this drawing here. This character has a, uh-oh. Excuse me. Glad I'm not in the classroom spraying it all over you. There's a lean. When we're doing a walk cycle, there's a forward lean here. And this is really important. So when the run happens, the lean becomes a lot greater. This is the balancing point. So study how you want your run to look like. Get the line of action to be leaning forward. Get the volume. Again, we're in the side view. This again will be in place. This run cycle will be in place. So here, we'll pick that pose where the feet are both off the ground at the same time. This is the left foot. Left arm is in the back position. The right arm is in the forwards position. So just study what that run would look like. Okay. Any questions? This is the run. And then what does the jump look like? And so if you could do this as a progression, if you're doing it randomly, then if his head is this tall, then he's going to have to jump over something, then his head is going to have to come down. So his head is going to have to come down. His line of action is going to change to a compression. Both feet might land on the ground. His arms might be up in the air and behind him before he jumps over whatever it is that he's jumping over. All right, so now we're just studying what that jumping over looks like. And while we're at it, let's go here. Let's go back to our board. And I believe last week I put in poses like this. So this is the kind of drawing I'm looking for. He's standing neutral. He's taking an anticipation. And his counteraction is that his body is still going down, but his arms are going up. And then he releases from the ground, jumps up in the air. Everything overlaps, and he comes to a point in the top of his arc where he is up in the air, and then he lands. In landing, he brings one foot down first, and then the other foot down second, and then he recoils and then finishes his landing. Once we've done that, you can see that there's a lot of other examples, right? And so what I'm asking you to do is think about what your design of your character looks like with a head, the line of action. What does it look like when they're jumping? What does it look like when they're fully in the air? So you can copy this pose right here just to study it. Look at where that line of action is. It's like a big curve. In this view, both feet are up in the air so that we can see them. And both arms are up in the air. One is coming behind his leg or his head. So he's got a pose that's very similar to this. All right, so once again, we're doing this randomly, right? I just use this part of the stage just to see what that pose looks like. Head, line of action, rhythm. Each leg has their own line of action. Arms have their own line of action. Does it look anything close to this? You know, it's close. Think about it. Just draw this pose. How do you want that pose to look like? Start with the head, the line of action, with the body in there. His feet are changed, so this foot is starting to come down. It's starting to come towards the ground plane. This leg is similar. His arms are changed, so now I can see both arms are landing. So study what this jump looks like. Got the run and the jump, right? This is the anticipation. So if we go backwards, then the run and then the anticipation is what this pose right here is looking at. This is the anticipation. Everything is built on this idea of what you choose for your script, for your story. Big S right here. All right, so let's go to the next page and talk about catch. And then you have to go back here and go, you know what? What is it that he's catching? Is it a ball? It can be anything. It could be a baby. It could be a vase, right? It could be a $1 million vase. So here we're going to say he was running and he jumped and he landed and he's going to catch the vase. Head, line of action. Oops, fix that. And here, this is kind of, I mentioned this last week, that here it's like the animator gets out of her chair and you pretend you're catching something and you look at what your body is doing. You're acting this out. And so here we've just got a character standing, but they've got both arms ready to see the catch. So this vase is coming down and they're going to catch this vase. In this instant here, it might make more sense if the character was looking up and then following the vase down to catch it. Once they catch this vase, the arms are going to come down. It's going to take the weight of that vase. So you've got we've got a bunch of different poses. One, head, 2, 3. It's going to come down even further, maybe. It's going to come down here, and then the character is going to recoil into a standing pose, holding the vase. Do I have any questions? Everyone okay?
Whenever we're planning out this final, is every frame going to be full body?
No.
Okay, because I had already started to kind of plan mine out and I did not intend on doing full body for all the sections.
Well, but you're going to need to do a run and catch, or like we decided here that I was walking and a run. So what
Right.
you might want to do is switch it up. So when you're doing your animation, you can have cuts. And so this does not all have to be one big shot.
I
So
wasn't planning on it being one big shot. That's why I was asking.
no, you can do cuts. So the other thing that we can do here is we can talk about cut. You know, run. He notices something, and then there's a cut.
I think I had like 4 or 5 cuts planned.
That was fine. Usually, when we're talking cuts in animation or cinema, we jump to what's called ASL. And ASL is average shot length. Nope, not American Sign Language too. Yeah, this is weird. All right, so it's called ASL, Cinema Average Shot Length. Anybody want to take a guess at what the ASL is for film? What's your average shot length in a film?
25 seconds.
Nope.
Was it 3 seconds?
Yeah, it's about 3.5 seconds. But you were almost correct, Shade, because well, we're looking at just a infographic here for Wes Anderson, and he tends to have longer shots because that's just his style. Right? Has anyone seen any of these movies?
I've seen Fantastic Mr. Fox, but it was a really long time
These
ago.
are all wonderful. You should watch all of these at some point. They're all really great. And his new one, The French Dispatch, it's like becoming one of my favorite films of all time, the more I think about it. So Shade, when you do a cut, yes?
I'm
Okay,
good.
so you do a cut. If you have a cut and you said 3 or 4 of them, if your ASL is like 5 seconds, that means you would have 20-second film. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can certainly, and I will help you figure out the timing as we go into
I
your,
think my original plan was my character gets hit in the face and then catches the ball, and
yeah,
then runs, jumps, and throws it.
right. So if you have 4, maybe even 5 different cuts, you could have a 20-second film, and that's fine. Don't worry. We will figure out how to do it perfectly. So let's look at this one. This is actually, I want to open this in a different tab. So right here you see average shot length in seconds. And you can see Woody Allen likes these really long shots. And you can see Martin Scorsese's right around 5 seconds. David Lynch, Wim Wenders, M. Night Shyamalan, Werner Herzog, Michael Hanke. Okay, so look at all this. All right, I'm gonna put this away. Very, very rare in film do you have the average shot length in your film over 5 seconds these days. Very, very rare. So if you're these guys, if you're Woody Allen and you're averaging 15 seconds a shot, that's a long time. All right, so when we look at this though, this graphic here kind of tells a bigger story. And the story that this tells is that in the very beginning of film, the 30s, the 1920s, you had average shot lengths that were 10, 12 seconds long. See this? This is for every film made in that era, all the way up. This is like 1951. Anyone want to take a guess at why the ASL was this long? Anybody take a guess? Nobody's gonna take a guess? All right, I'll tell you. Do you want me to tell you? Oh, please, Billy, tell us. Stop torturing us. Because it was film. And unloading and reloading and exposing the camera took a lot of extra time. And so the directors in this day and age, especially up until about 1972, were very concerned that they wanted to get the shot from their storyboard, from their script onto film correctly. And if they had to do take 1, take 2, take 3, take 4, take 5, take 6, this is a lot of film. This could make your film really expensive. If you're doing 10-second takes, 11-second average shot length, and you were asking for 5, 6, 7, 8 retakes, you're gonna be sending your budget through the roof. And so you can see this, that most of the data collected here shows that there's a decline in the average shot length. The decline because now this is digital. And it's really easy to go from 6 to 8 takes to 100 takes. It's really easy. You don't have to do anything. You just take another shot. But now because things are digital, your ASL is somewhere around 3.5 to 5 seconds long. And it's something for you to just think about. You don't have to have a quiz on this. It's something that I just want you thinking about because animation is cinema. And when you're doing a run, jump, catch, you're actually making a short film. And so we do need to talk about storyboard. We need to talk about Joseph Campbell and American mythology and hero's journey. And when you're talking about the hero's journey, that's a really great way to critique any kind of film. All right, so having said that, let me ask if there's any questions. Everyone understand ASL? It's either American Sign Language or average shot length. All right, so I have a couple more things I would like to talk about, especially with this homework coming up here. Let's continue here. Just in time to mute that. All right, I saw Reagan. Okay. Heads tall, neutral poses, trying some different expressions, some different actions. I think you got the right idea. Is this character right here pointing at the camera? Reagan, Mr. Reagan. All right, these look okay. I think you did good. All right, and remember everyone that this is open till the end of May. So put it in there when you get it, get those drawings in there. All right, am I sharing my screen with you all properly?
I see your
Yes.
screen
Yeah, I
now.
think so. Okay. All right, so let's just reiterate a couple of things here. We had a lot of things that we're talking about here when it comes to character design, drawing your gestures, animating the verbs. Animator always animates the verbs. That's the principal thing that an animator does, is set the keys for the verbs. What we're going to do, a run and a catch and a jump. And so you are all encouraged to add to this, to move it around, catch, jump, run, whatever. Adding a walk in there is a great thing because we are going to do a walk. We're going to do a run. And so having the walk and the run as that, you're not just doing it, it's going to be part of your final, makes perfect sense. You don't want to waste it. You don't want to just do these separately. Do them. We'll talk about putting them into your final. So again, we're just reviewing. We're going to do a script. We're going to talk about our short story. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's not the hero's journey. It's not some epic film. So whatever you're thinking of doing, you're going to have a neutral, you're going to have a character walking, stopping, thinking, reacting, anticipating, running. This is your script. And then we're going to talk about film aspect ratio. You're going to be using 16:9. And there are other parts of your directions here that we'll go over when we're talking about 16:9 ratio. I'm not having you do boards just yet. We're doing our thumbs randomly, and we're kind of thinking about, are we going to have a full shot? Are we going to have a mid shot? This would be a mid shot right here. So this would be a wide. This would be a mid shot. This would be a close up. Or CU or MS. Sometimes wide is just written as wide. If you have a character where just their face is in the shot, then it's an extreme close up. And we'll talk about all this again next week. But for right now, you're just thinking, hey, I got to do a walk cycle for this project. I got to do a run cycle for this project. So let's talk about putting the run in your final. Right, everyone okay? All right, so then what I want you doing is studying your poses. And you're studying these poses, again, with the head. Drawing number, the head is always drawn first. The line of action, LOA. That's your second thing that you draw. Then the body. Draw the volume for your body. And then the LOA for the legs. And then 5, the LOA for the arms. Oops, can't spell today. Put your pose together, make sure it's on model for whatever proportion you pick. Remember that when we do our run and our walk, they will be side view and that they will be in place. So it's something to consider when you're putting your script together here. All right. All right, now we're just studying poses. Right, so that was our last drawing for today. So let's kind of review this again. We're going to have a character that's walking, and we're going to draw our script again. So we're going to have a character walking. They're going to see something. Basically the same thing we've already been talking about, but we're just kind of fleshing it out a little more. They're going to react. This is just mine. You can do anything that you would like. React to something. They're going to anticipate. They're going to run. They're going to take an anticipation in that run. and jump over something. They're going to land. They're going to catch the vase and come to a stop. All right, so what I've done is I've just drawn this out, and remember that in Rough Animator, this is 16 by 9. It's 16 by 9 because we said it was that way. In our calculator, we didn't do the other thing that we could have done. It's that when we called up this project in Rough Animator, it was 1280 by 720. And that's exactly the same ratio. When you buy your television set, it is 1920 by 1080. Oops, hold on. 1920 by 1080. And that's the exact same ratio. 4K is the same ratio, just bigger. 8K is going to be twice that size. 16K is going to be twice that size. All right, everyone okay? And I know we're talking about a lot of things here all at once, but we need to. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're looking at our script right here. And this is how I would suggest you laying this out. And what you can do is you can say, walk and see and react and run. You don't need each one of these to be a cut. Walking and seeing something and reacting and anticipation, maybe even the run, you can do a cut right here. And I would recommend these lines right here. You can just change your mind and say walk and then cut here. And then a cut here to a run, anticipation, and a jump. So I've got shot 1, shot 2, shot 3, shot 4. And just kind of think about it filmically, walking. And then this is going to be a mid shot. So this is going to be a wide. This is going to, because we're going to be closer here. And then the run is going to be back to a wide for the anticipation and the jump. And this cut will still be wide or a mid shot. And all of a sudden, this really starts to help us with our poses. So for next week, I want the script. This is part 1 of what I want you to think about for next week. So part 1 is your script. And drawing it out makes a lot of sense. You don't have to have all the other words in there. These are just the verbs, right? All right, part 2 then is studying these poses. So how do you want your character to be? Now I have my characters walking the other way. And remember, this walk and this run are going to be in place and in the side view. They're going to be in place and in the side view. So that's kind of why there's a natural cut right here. They're going to be wide, in place, and in the side view. All right, so at this walk, head, line of action, they're looking this way. So there's a forward lean. Their foot is here. And what does that walking pose look like? Good, got it. We don't have to, don't put any framing on this. I talked about this just maybe even a little too much, but it's something to think about because we needed to talk about what was going on. What are you looking at in terms of a wide shot, mid shot, close up, extreme close up? You could have an extremely wide shot. This would be extremely wide shot. If you have the Grand Canyon and you have this perspective, this is an extremely wide shot. What do you need? So for here, we just have our walk. So for this expression, if you're in a mid shot, and Shade, this is kind of what you were thinking, that the character's looking that way. So what does that shot look like? Draw the head and the line of action, get the shoulders in there. You know, constantly go back to what your character design looked like. Draw the midline. You know, the character is looking at something, so they're going to need some eyes. And I'm just drawing the gesture. You know, you could even think about this shot right here, because if the shot was like, I'm just going to put this really rough right here, really, really lightly, that the character is going to be like in the camera, kind of like about like that. So once you set this little thumbnail right here, you want to go back to your script and say he was walking in place. He sees something here. So this is a cut. So you also might want to say the character stops walking. So instead of having to animate this lean, this forward lean, to being a balanced line of action here, you can just cut. All right, so what we're going to do here is you're just going to draw the character standing and looking at something. You know, just kind of figure out what that character is going to look like. I'm going to actually fix this a little bit. All right, so reaction, and then we'll go over this in another couple weeks, but you know, what does that reaction pose look like? You know, you know, how cartoony do you want your character to be? You can have fun with this pose. It's like, oh my God, what did you just see? All right, so that's this reaction here. All right, then we talk about anticipation or run. We didn't have enough room right here, so let's go to a next drawing. You know, what does that run look like? Head, line of action is really pushed now. It's got a really big forward lean. Hit the body in there. The legs up in the air. You know, maybe in my script, he's catching a vase, so his arms are out. And so he's just going to run in this kind of pose, run. You know, it's obvious, but let's go back. So then he's going to take an anticipation. And from here, our line of action is a gentle compound curve. But if he's going to take an anticipation to jump over something, right, just doesn't matter what it is, it's the box or something, then he's going to have his feet land here. His line of action is going to change from this compound curve to a really deep single curve, arms up, elbows up, feet down. You know, study this pose, just kind of like we had it here. No, he's just standing and jumping here, but we had our character running to hit this pose, this position on the ground plane before he jumps over. And so this is a good one to study right here. You know, what does this pose look like in the air when he's up here? So we've got the head, the line of action, we've got the body, we've got the feet. You know, that looks kind of funky that he's going from almost a side view to a 3/4 view here. So study it just a little more in the side view. What does that pose look like in the side view where the legs are up? This leg is over here. Give it a good silhouette. You know, his arms are above him. something like that might work, where he's going from a pose like this to a pose like this. And how does he get there? He stretches off the ground. So you can, and again, you're doing these just randomly. And this is kind of what I mean by random, is that in this study right here, it's like, okay, so he's running. There's a really strong compound curve here for the line of action. It changes to a single C-shaped arc right here. But then how does he get there? So the study of the pose is going to be, maybe he's going to leech off the ground. So in studying this pose, he's got his arms like really up in the air here. So he's going to go from his arms out, and he's going to run. He's going to just like, he's going to try to really push himself off the ground. So he's got one leg up in the air, one on the ground. What does that jumping pose look like? All right, so does everyone understand what I'm looking for right here? All right, then in our script, we're at the jumping part. How does he land? We go back to here, you can see that he stretches to meet the ground. So his line of action is going to be reversed. You can see this is a good one, whereas one arm is up here and the other is down. We got one leg stretching to meet the ground. Oops, sorry, let me fix that. Stretching to meet the ground, and the other leg that's still up in the air a little bit. We go back here, then, so he's up in the air here. And here, this is already reaching the ground plane. And this, so there's a big reversal of the line of action going from an S shape to a C shape to a straight single backward shape. The reversal of the line of action is the strongest thing that you can do in animation. So it goes from an S shape to a C shape to a backward C shape, and then to a forward C shape. Then he lands, and now here it's a backward C shape. So then he lands, and he's going to bring his weight down. So it's going to be, how does he land? You might want to get out of your chair. How do you land? This is a good example right here to show what that landing is going to look like. You're just studying the pose. You're trying to figure out the weight. You're trying to figure out the weight. And the lean. If there's a forward momentum, then it's going to carry him. So now he's really hitting the ground plane. Now with both feet. Now his arms are down here. Another drawing. Sorry. What we had thought about was that he was going to be catching a vase. So in preparation and anticipation of catching that vase, he's you can really figure out this pose. Contrapposto, one arm, the other arm, what does that silhouette look like? One leg is on the ground, this leg maybe isn't on the ground yet. And remember too, that in terms of action, that just like we talked about before, he might be looking backwards, or he might be looking upwards. So the vase is like up here. And then in this pose, he's continuing to land. Both feet are on the floor. The vase is now in his hands. Might make more sense to have the vase be in this direction. It looks like a better silhouette. And then continue to study it. If this has any weight to it, then if you draw the next pose right over the top of it, there's going to be a squash. So his body's going to come down, his legs are going to bend, it's going to come down. So you're going to have as much squash in here as you can get. The vase is going to come with it. And just study how far can you push that squash. And you can do this too if you want. You could just draw different color poses right over the top of it. So you can see that the incremental change of landing one, landing two, paying attention to what he's trying to catch, having the catch, and then drawing a succession of poses right over the top of this. This makes sense because his feet are locked. And then really right on top of this, you can play with the idea of the recoil. What is he going to look like if he stands straight up? His head is going to come up. His line of action is going to be neutral, body, and his legs are going to basically stay in the same position. And now he's holding the vase. So I know that this looks a little sloppy right here, but you've got a lot of thinking going on just with what those poses look like right on top of each other. You can do it this way, or you can separate them out if you want. All right, everyone okay? Just reprise just a little bit. We're talking about poses. So you're taking the poses that you've already drawn and now you're putting them into your story. You know, study this. If you've got a reaction pose like this, and you guys, this is really kind of good right here. I'm going to say, oh, you know what? This is good. I'm going to put this in the chat. If I can find the chat. I don't know where my chat went. I'll put that in the chat. That's a good one. I'll put it in the discussion area of our class. Remember to always link your links when you do this. It makes it a lot easier for people who are looking at it. What is the 13th and then to the end of May? All right, so that's there for you to look at. But then let's go back over here and let's do like just the study of Tex Avery, exaggerated expression. Switch it to images, and he was the master of this. He was the master of the crazy expression here. And how much squash and stretch can you get into a character animation? We're not even close to some of the shots that he was famous for, like the eyes popping out or a character reacting. These are good right here. And I would encourage you to explore this kind of exaggeration because who knows, this might be one of the few times where you get to really play with this kind of cartoon style of animation. Especially for that one pose. Everything else is a walk and a run and a catch and a jump, but this one pose for where he's reacting and he's like, oh my God, the vase, right? And we can even go in and talk about blur lines and speed lines and dry brush and repeated shapes. There's a whole bunch of really cool things we can talk about here. So Tex Avery was the master of this. You also have Ward Kimball at Disney doing the same thing. No, he had a lot of it in Alice in Wonderland. A lot of that stuff was just all the way through his inspiration to Iago in Aladdin. The voice for Iago was done by Gilbert Gottfried. He just died yesterday. A very animated character himself. Yeah, so Ward Kimball was responsible for a lot of the cartoony stuff that was going on at Disney, whereas a lot of the other animators at Disney were very illusion of life, very strict to the rules of Mother Nature. Another one would be Chuck Jones. Oops, I spelled Chuck Jones wrong. You know, so there's a whole bunch of really great ways to push the line of action. Just look at this one right here. You know, look at how they're pushing the line of action. It's just really completely freakishly awesome. And we could talk about that specific pose more as the next couple weeks go by. But remember, when we're talking about this particular pose for the reaction, whatever it is that causes your character to go from the walk to the run, or whatever your story is, that you have lots of things work. It's really fun to animate this. It's amazing how much you can get away with. You can play with the lines and shapes and movement, and you can get away with almost anything. And the idea would be is just to have as much fun with it as possible. Chuck Jones, Tex Avery, Bob Clampett, Ward Kimball. You know, if you've seen bugs have two faces on one drawing, and there's all kinds of fun things you can do with that pose. You're not bound by just the simple laws of nature. You know, look at the exaggerated poses you can get into your characters. And you start by the head and the line of action. And then you just really, really push that line of action. And that was the height of the golden age of animation. It was right in the middle of it. The 40s, 50s, and 60s, even all the way into the 70s. You know, look at how much deformation you can get in your characters. It was crazy. They realized that they could have so much fun with these drawings. And I want you to explore that too. That's why I put it in that script for you. All right, this should pretty simple forward. Get your script written out and start playing with what you want your poses that you did for me this week now to look like in that final script. Okay? Everybody okay? Comments, questions, complaints, conundrums, criticisms? Did anybody just hand something in they want me to look at? All
I'm
right.
good.
So remember, please remember, when you're doing these poses, you start with the head and the line of action. Deborah, have you counted how many times I said the line of action tonight? No. If you don't have the line of action in these drawings, you're going to be in trouble because it is the thing that drives your poses. In my notes here, if you ever see a video of Glenn Keane drawing or Chuck Jones drawing on film, right? It's amazing. They're just amazing animator. They're amazing craftspeople. But they've been drawing that character for decades, for years and years and years. And sometimes they're so good at it, they don't need to draw that line of action. So it can be confusing to us as beginners when we're looking at that drawing. How did he get that pose? Because the line of action was in their head. It was in their hand. Their hands have memory. They knew what they were going for with that pose. And so it looked easy because they've been doing it for years. For us, the best thing that you can do is draw the head, the line of action, the body, the line of action for both feet. Study that sequential thing I just drew, posted for the little jumping guy. And don't erase anything. Just go with it. Draw from your shoulder and just go, draw. Just push that line of action, exaggerate it as much as you can.
Could you just, what exactly is due next week again? I'm sorry.
Exactly what I've just been talking about. I want you to write your script out, how you think you want it to be, just like I did it, and then draw thumbnails that represents each one of those verbs.
From our script?
From your script, yes.
Okay.
And everyone's is going to be different. And so,
Sorry, my audio has been cutting in and out.
I'm sorry. Well, you can go back and look at the video, but just remember that what I'm looking for is good gestures. And some of you need to get the gesture in from that was due today. So Victor, Angel, Vivian, Angel Maduno. Did I say that right? Madueno?
It's an Enye, so like Madueño.
Madueno. And one, you have your poses that are due for today, due as well. On top of now we're putting those poses into your script. So that should make sense. Right? You designed your character, you played around with the proportions, you studied some verbs, some actions, and now you're doing the script that we will have a good 5 weeks, I think. A good 5 weeks to put together a really nice final for yourself.
Thank you
Okay.
for class.
Yep, I will see you all next week. I will put this video up on YouTube in the hour or so. Okay.
Thank you.
I'll see you all
Bye.
next
Thank
week.
you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.